Welcome to Forget About It Junk Removal. I'm your host, Paul Italia. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to my channel. Before we introduce today's guest, I want to shout out October 25th, the Junk Expo going down in Rohnert Park, California, set up by Sonoma Strong Junk Removal. If you guys haven't already, get in touch with Matt Vick and go and get your tickets. I know there's not many left. I'll be making a trip for this one, along with top guys in the industry. Great place to learn a lot of knowledge. I'd like to introduce today's guest. He is the man when it comes to commercial insurance in the junk industry. Toby Stubbs, welcome, brother. How are you today?
Doing great, doing great. How you doing, Paul?
Doing great, my man. I'm happy to have you on the channel. Thank you for taking this time. So, I want to first start off and I want to just kind of find out about your background and how you became a broker specializing in commercial insurance for junk removal industry.
Yeah, so I started in the industry in 2003 selling commercial insurance in the Chicagoland area. I cut my teeth selling contractors and construction companies, and really focused on workers' comp and safety procedures and helping companies to just be compliant with all types of insurance requests. I did that for about 10 years. And then finally in 2013, I broke off on my own and started my own agency and just said, hey, tired of being a W 2. I'm gonna, take all my 401k money and go all in on myself and and start selling policies out of the garage, which is what I did. And I grinded it together. I was the only employee for probably the first 2, 3 years until I could afford an actual real employee. And, just like any entrepreneur, I was robbing Peter to pay Paul. I was fighting to pay the electric bill. My mother in law was buying me groceries. I knew that the electric bill or the gas and electric in Wisconsin, they wouldn't shut it off starting in November. So I would stop paying the bill in November. And then when the tax return came in April, I would back pay off the gas and electric bill. So, I mean, I really started from absolute zero, no money. I had 100 grand total in my 401k when I started my agency and just started slowly building and grinding and selling one policy at a time until eventually in 2015 I sold my first junk removal policy to a buddy of mine who bought a J Dog junk removal. Within like 3 months of that, I had sold 10 J Dog junk removal policies because the word of mouth and the veteran community and just that kind of catching on. And then from there, I went out and flew out to Philadelphia, met with J Dog Corporate, and one thing led to another. They kind of endorsed me and embraced me as their guy and said, "Hey, we're gonna refer you exclusively moving forward." And the way that I did that was I just reviewed and analyzed their policies and several policies they had on the books. And I showed them all the mistakes and errors that I was finding consistently from the referral that they had been using previously. And then once going through that process, they interviewed like 3 or 4 other brokers and they said, "Oh yeah, you're our guy. We want to move forward and recommend you." So that's how I got into the industry, and then probably for 3 or 4 years after that, I just kind of worked exclusively with them until I branched out in like 2019, 2020, and really started writing junk removal all over the country for both other franchises and the independent channel. And once we really rolled out, started catering towards the independent channel, that just grew so much faster than any other focus or book of business. So currently it's about 90% of what I work on. is just junk removal and dumpster rental in the last year or two has really exploded. So we do a lot of just diving into policies, reviewing current coverages, shopping out in the local marketplace. And our experience from being through so many different claim scenarios and situation is really what has allowed us to become the experts in this specific niche that we really don't find competitors in. There's no other Toby Stubbs that's really out there that I know of that's doing the kind of stuff that we're doing. So it's exciting. It's fun. Every day is challenging. It's a different challenge. Somebody has a claim situation or a problem, or they're getting their rates are raising too high, or they're misclassified, or the vehicles are misclassified. So we're always running into that type of stuff that we're just helping to fix and make a difference for our clients.
And now the name of your company, it's Wisdom Insurance.
Yeah, Wisdom Insurance. My old man, I grew up in Ohio near Cincinnati, which is why I'm blessed and cursed as a Bengals fan. But my old man was a judge in Ohio and did juvenile delinquency for 13 years and then domestic relations for 17. And when he ran for judge, his slogan was "a man of quiet wisdom." So, Wisdom Insurance is just a throwback to the old man for, for namesake.
Well, I got to say, brother, you are very well known in the junk industry. I was put on by Sonoma Strong. I was telling them I went to a couple of brokers, and I was just hearing ridiculous numbers, and they really didn't understand my business and how to classify it. And he said, "Oh, you need to get in touch with Tony Stubbs right away." And I was like, "Oh, who's Toby?" And he said, "He is the man in junk removal." And then, just going through the videos, just in the last couple of days, I see you everybody, and everybody seems to have went through you for commercial insurance. So you are definitely the man in the junk industry for commercial insurance. And it's obvious, I was on the phone with you, and the knowledge and just, stuff that all the other brokers that I spoke with, had no idea. You know exactly, how to classify everything, to do everything properly, make sure we're insured the right way. And, I'm just blessed to come across so definitely want to shout you out on that. And what is some unique risk associated with the junk removal industry that business owners should be aware of?
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest one that we come across that most people just don't know in general is that when you're actually in the act of loading and unloading as a junk removal company, that type of exposure goes underneath your commercial auto. So when you think about as a junk removal company, that's like 90% of what you do. So while you're in somebody's house, if you cause property damage while in their house, then that exposure falls underneath the commercial auto exposure. So that's one of the reasons why those rates kind of run so high. And then you have like huge discrepancies depending on what part of the country you are in terms of pricing. So the southern states tend to run the hottest in terms of, Florida might be 15 to 25 grand a truck. Texas is going to be, 12 to 18 grand. Um, uh, California might be on average 6 to 8. And then the Midwest states, you might be 3, 4, 5 grand a truck, 6 grand a truck. So it really differs quite a bit. And a lot of that is due to the risk exposure in those particular areas, whether you have a lot of uninsured and underinsured drivers because the cost of the insurance is just so high that the guy with the truck and the trailer just isn't going to pay the 8-10 grand like they need to in order to properly insure. And so they're going to make excuses or do whatever in order to keep that cost down, like, oh, hey, no, my personal policy should be fine. And so that those types of areas where you've got a lot more of that, and the costs are so high, so it just becomes cost prohibitive to really get involved in the industry. Um, like Florida and Texas and Louisiana is the worst. Louisiana's, you can't find a cost under 30 grand a truck. So, that's humping a lot of couches in order to get to a point where you can afford a premium like that. So you look at the cost can drive the rates based off of just the risk exposures of the area that you're in. A tornado uh, area versus a hurricane area. Hurricane's going to cause $1 billion worth of damage, whereas tornadoes might just be a couple million. So if you're in Florida or Louisiana and you got a hurricane pounding in, causing $1 billion worth of damage once every 3 years, hey, those rates are very different than any other part of the country. So I think in terms of what shocks people the most when I'm first talking to them is these average costs of commercial auto rates. And depending on what your specific risk portfolio looks like, are you starting with a truck and a trailer? Are you using dump trucks, Isuzu NPRs and Mitsubishi Fusos, or what kind of setup and operation do you have? And because the majority of the liability expense lies in that liability cost, maybe 70-80% of it, it doesn't really matter if you've got brand new trucks or older trucks. The values of the vehicles themselves make up such a small component of the insurance costs that it's really in the liability. So I think that's what we find people are most shocked by when they get started in the industry. But if you take all the hundreds of junk removal companies and dumpster rental companies all over the country and the thousands of vehicles that we insure and divide it by the premium, our average client pays about $8,700 per unit. So that's a pretty good gauge for you as you're getting started to know and understand, all right, well, what type of expense are we up against? But yeah, it's wild. I mean, we'll talk to guys every single day. I'm talking to 10 to 20 people a week where we're just reviewing their current coverages and taking a look at mistakes that are made on their policies. And the local broker doesn't know what to call it. They don't know how to classify the business. They don't know how to classify the individual vehicles. And so we see all kinds of mistakes made on the local policy by the local broker in terms of misclassifications. And like I'll share with you a really good example of I did a little mock quote here up for Toby's junk removal. So I'll share this with you. Let me see if I can screen share here and get this to work. Um, this is the Progressive's website, and this is this is what the local broker is going in and starting with when they go into quote. Do you have a DOT number, and are you required to apply for a DOT number within 60 days? Well, answering that question, yes, surcharges this policy anywhere from 10 to 20%, which can be a lot if you've got a couple vehicles or if you're in the more expensive state. And then from there, they go to enter the business type, and if you enter junk, nothing comes up. Junkyard's the only option, right? So the local guy doesn't know what to call this. They don't know how to classify it. So they just start typing in keywords that they think might be a match, and the real correct one for debris removal. For junk removal is going to be debris removal. Now, garbage, if you type in garbage, you'll see garbage and trash hauling removal. And those class codes can be okay, but in some states, they may have a little bit higher rate because you're getting in additional types of risks beyond just the debris removal class code. So it really, this is the first thing where we see a lot of things go wrong, and we see everything from trucker, commercial trucker, and that is definitely claim denial. We'll see classifications like janitor, and janitor is definitely not the right classification. And so this is where the first thing can go wrong, right? Now, as debris removal, we go into the next set of questions where things can go wrong. And the next set of questions is the actual vehicle itself, and how is the vehicle itself being classified. And when you go to click on adding a new vehicle, um, this is what they're looking at. This is what the local broker is looking at, and you can see there's so many options here, and they don't know. They'll see a junk truck and they might call it a box truck, and you would think, oh, box truck would be a reasonable selection, but that's the most expensive option. If you look at, like, I just ran a sample quote for a dump truck for Toby's junk removal here in Texas, and this is with the vehicle being classified uh, as a dump truck, which is the right classification for a junk truck. And you can see this premium comes out to 77,638. Here's everything else being the same, except we're calling the vehicle a box truck. And you can see the quote is now $8,677. So literally the difference of $1,000, and then you take that mistake and you compound it over time, and you're talking about thousands of extra dollars that you're paying in insurance just for that local broker not knowing and understanding what to call the vehicle. And the reality is the junk trucks are dump trucks. They've been modified. They're a cabin chassis that might be fixed, and then they've got an added dump truck feature to it. And we see this a lot with dumpster rental too. The dumpster rental classifications, the right classification is either flatbed, or garbage truck roll-on, is also acceptable. But flatbed truck, I mean, your local guy is just not going to select that as an option. And so you can see how confusing all this can be to the local person that doesn't really know and isn't in these all day long and doesn't work in these every single day. We came across a recent sample client. Here's a guy who's out of Georgia, and I blacked out all this stuff. So you can see they're paying 70 grand, and you get into the vehicles themselves. Here's a Silverado pickup truck. Okay, that all looks fine. That's fine and dandy. Here's an Isuzu pickup truck or a Mitsubishi Fuso, and it's classified as a box truck. So this is that exact example. And look at the premium that's associated with that, with listing that as a box truck.
Wow.
Now you have a trailer, utility trailer. This one's done correctly. Then you have a dump body trailer. And just by selecting that dump body trailer, which by the way uh, requires a pulling unit with a pickup truck that requires a whatchamacallit, it's not a bumper pull, it's a fifth wheel, or um, what is the trailer? Hang on, let me go back to my vehicles here. Um, when you go to, like, add a Ford F-350, it'll say, hey, is that a fifth wheel or a gooseneck or a ball in bed or a ball bumper. Well, for you to be able to select as a or as a trailer, um, the dump trailer option, you have to be saying that the vehicle itself is a gooseneck. And and this guy doesn't have any goosenecks. None of these trailers are goosenecks. So if you look in our quote that we ran in our sample quote, and you look at the costs associated with just a pull behind utility trailer that has a dump body. So here's a dump body that I did. It's more than 12 feet. It's got $3,000 in permanently attached equipment for which takes into consideration the dump feature, and then 11,000. So this is probably average that we see in terms of cost for a dump trailer, costing 14,000, like a big Tex or something like that. Um, so in our example, this premium that's being generated as a result of adding this utility trailer, if you go to our rates, they're going to charge $400, maybe $400 for this particular trailer. If you look at the rate that so here it is, $447. So if we go back to our local guy is calling this a dump body trailer. There's a liability premium being associated with that. He's got the deductibles. They have the deductibles cranked up to 2,500, which is crazy. And then the comp and collision premium associated with this for a $10,000, $500 trailer, they're charging a premium of $1,253. So now you take that same mistake and you compound that over the amount of trailers that are on this policy. We got 1, 2 trailers, 3 trailers, 4 trailers, 5 trailers. Here's a 6th trailer, and this trailer is actually $2,753. By the way, all these trailers are the exact same trailer. So I'm not even sure why and how this premium is coming up double these other premiums, which is bizarre to me. You also have multiple different garaging zip codes on here, so I'm not sure why that is. But all these little mistakes that are being made by the local broker really add up. When you look at this example too, and this is from this week. This isn't from like, oh, hey, I'm going to pick out this is a guy I talked to on Tuesday that sent me this on Tuesday. So as you look at these kind of errors that are occurring, here's the Isuzu dump truck. It's classified as a pickup truck. So again, that's a junk truck. I mean, that should be classified as a dump truck, no question about it. Now, obviously, that premium, we don't even know whether that's close to accurate because that vehicle is so far off. So this is the kind of stuff that we just see consistently, looking at policies, reviewing. So my proposal to this guy is to move this policy over to us. Let us go behind the scenes and fix all this for him, get the right coverages, get everything classified correctly. But I mean, all of these trailers should be $400 or $500, and so you can see it's not a ton, but it's enough from a micromanaging standpoint that these errors could be avoided, and they can be fixed if you know what you're doing. If you don't, and you're just going in and guessing, or your team that you're working with, this could be a great agent. This insurance agent could be phenomenal, but they just don't know what they don't know. And if they're just sending this in to their customer service rep who's just processing, adding a vehicle, and they don't really know, and they're just guessing, these guesses when made errantly, can end up costing you as a business owner thousands and thousands over time. And then you compound that year over year and they renew, and you're just renewing with all these errors. It really adds up.
After
So,
seeing all this, I understand now why you want to find a specialist like yourself in the junk industry. You're an expert in this. You did it for so many years, and it really pays off for the people that are looking to get commercial insurance to go to somebody as knowledgeable as you. But another thing that stands out is you were telling me the prices down in Florida, were one of the highest, like, 25, $30,000 a year. How does that work out for like a newbie getting into the industry? And let's say they're just using a dump trailer. They went with the dump trailer rather than the dump truck because most people would assume that it would be a big price difference and the dump trailer would be a lot less. But after hearing what you're saying, it really doesn't have that much of a difference what vehicle it is. It's more of the area, that you're dealing in. So how do people get around that? Like, how do they work that out? Because you don't have business when you first get into the industry, and now you're already 30,000, you're paying like $2,500 a month, so you're already in the red with that. So how does that work out for the newbies? How do they last?
yeah, you really have to walk. You got to crawl before you walk, before you run. So you got to get started somehow, and you got to work your way into it. And maybe you can't afford a higher limit in the beginning. A lot of the commercial types of jobs that you'll get, like if you're doing storage facility cleanouts or you're working with bankers and realtors. So it just kind of depends on where you're going to start and how you're going to get started. The normal residential client isn't going to ask you for $1 million worth of coverage. They're not going to ask you for all the endorsements. They're not going to ask you for workers' comp. They're not going to ask you for $1 million umbrella. If you're working in the commercial space, you might get asked for those, and those might be requirements. Like if you want to do a bank hoarder clean out, you better make sure that all of your insurance is up to date and you're compliant with their certificate request before you accept that job. But if you're just getting started and you want to grind, I would recommend starting in the residential space where you're not going to be asked for all that insurance, all those insurance requirements. And maybe you go with a little bit lower of a liability limit in the beginning to get started. You can see, like, this is a perfect example. Let me go back to my screen share here, and I'll share this commercial auto sample quote again. You can see here's my Texas sample quote where we're at 15K for the year. Actually, if you sign up for EFT, you can save money there. There's all kinds of little ways you can save money on these policies. So instead of 15,400, if we do automatic payments, now we're at 15,000 flat. So we're going to save $400 by just going to automatic payments. But as you look at the differences between these two sample vehicles that I did this for, here's the Isuzu brand new junk truck. The premium for that's 7,800. The majority of the premium lies in the liability, and this might be an $85,000 truck, whereas this Ford F-250 might be a 40 or 50 grand truck, but still the premium's still going to be 6,500 for, and then you add another 431 for the truck and trailer. So
Oh,
this premium
it's
70
very
grand
close.
versus 7,800 is not a huge difference. So when you're looking at, okay, well, what is the real cost difference between these two types of operations? It's not as extreme as you would think. And then if you look at, okay, here's our premium at $15,023, we're going to say, okay, well, we're going to drop this down to 500,000 in order to save some money, right? We don't want to, we don't have the ability to pay these premiums, so we're going to drop this down. Here's an example of what that quote looks like. It's still
Uh,
12 grand,
yeah.
right? So the majority is in that first layer of liability and really lies in the liability. We've reduced this down a couple grand, but you're not saving tons and tons. So the question is, do you want to adequately insure your business as you're getting started, or do you want to try to, you know, and at the end of the day, you have to do what you got to do what you have to do. So if the 15 grand just isn't in the budget and you can't make it happen, but you can't make the 12 grand work, then you're going to go with the 12 grand just because it is what it is. But
We got a
ideally,
question from
you
Daniel.
start with the mill. Yeah, go ahead.
Daniel says, "What about estimates? And also, do you take everything to the local dump?" Now, I could kind of answer that in a way. I remember you saying that it does make a difference if you're going to a dump or a transfer station. So, can you kind of explain, how does that work out?
Yeah, so it does in our world, it translates to the insurance world um, from the standpoint of the dump. The insurance companies view the dump as like unlimited liability, really bad things happen at the dump, bad claims, blah, blah, blah. Now, in actuality, do they really? No, they don't, right? It's not like the dump is the, but we've seen guys take their, Suzu NPR and drive over a mattress, and then the springs wrap up in the bottom of the mattress, and total out the undercarriage of the truck. That was a $15,000 claim from driving over a mattress. Guys will open the door and it will bang into the truck next to them or the car next to them, and they'll cause damage that way. There's all kinds of little things that happen at the dump, and when you roll into the dump, you're basically unlimited liability, right? So the dump always pushes the liability back on anybody who's going into the dump. But the reality is we don't see a whole lot of claims from there. But in an underwriter's mind, if you're dealing with an insurance company that is reviewing and underwriting the risk exposure, they're viewing the dump as like bad, bad. So if your client is only going to the transfer station, then that's a better risk and that can be presented in a different light to the insurance underwriter. So it can be maybe there's more insurance companies in your area that will entertain a company that doesn't go to the dump. So that's where that really makes a difference, is finding and getting to that local solution. And that's one of the things that we've done so well with over the years, is knowing exactly who to go to, exactly what to call it, exactly what carriers in that region of the country are competitive, and how can you get multiple quotes and multiple options. Once you have been in business and once you've been established, what are those additional players that are willing to write junk removal insurance? Who are those companies, and are you getting to them, and are you getting quotes from them? So that's a big factor into, I think, what makes us successful over time, is we're really consistently doing that. And it doesn't matter whether you're in Florida, whether you're in Hawaii, New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, you know, Wisconsin. We're literally in all 50 states, and we're going after aggressively this specific industry. So we're getting to those insurance solutions faster than anybody else, and that I think is a big competitive advantage of being with us compared to the local, BNI guy, or the local um, the local state farm agent will tell you that they can do it. The local broker will tell you they can do it. And then once they go out and actually get quotes, they'll go to bind those, and then they'll get canceled because they don't know that, a new DOT number or whatever filings can cause you problems, or they don't realize that they were able to generate the quote, but then once it goes into underwriting, it gets rejected. So we see that a lot. So it just kind of depends where you're at in the country and what the options are.
We got a message from Red Cap Man. He goes, "Yo, Paul, how you doing? Just stopping by and checking things out and learning. Appreciate you checking in, brother, and following my journey. As you guys all know, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I get into many different businesses, and right now I'm getting into the junk removal business. And this is the guy that you talk to when you need commercial insurance. We just heard he is the expert in this, so he could save you a lot of money and get you connected with the right people also. And we also have from Daniel. He says, "My bad, I thought you owned a truck removal business. Sorry for the misunderstanding on my end. It's a junk removal business, bro. So we're dealing with all different types of trucks. Some people got dump trailers, some doing with pickups, some are doing with dump trucks. I just got my brand new 2025 dump truck, which I'll be picking up on Monday, so I'm very excited about that. And then, Toby, I wanted to ask you, so how has the junk removal industry evolved in terms of insurance over the years?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I first started, there were probably 6 or 7 companies in every state, right? So that would write junk removal insurance. So when I first started, Liberty Mutual was the largest writer of junk removal insurance all over the country. We also had Nationwide, we had State Auto that would do it, we had Progressive, we had all kinds of companies. And then we had a bunch of regionals that would write insurance for the junk removal space, depending on what part of the country, what region you were in. So not only the big nationals would do it, but there were a lot of local companies that would write it as well. Over time, losses, large losses. It's not the little loss. Little claims aren't being filed by junk removal companies because if you're filing little claims, you're going to find yourself out of insurance real quick, or you're going to see your premiums go from 20 grand a unit to 40 grand a unit, 50 grand a unit. And it's going to become unaffordable. So the smaller type of operation really has to protect the integrity of a clean loss history over time. And you're not going to file a claim for $2,500 if you can avoid it, or even 5 grand, because if you're paying 10 grand for your insurance and they raise your rate 50% as a result of filing that one at fault claim, now that 5 extra grand that you pay is going to follow you for the next 3 to 5 years. So it's not just the 5 grand now, it's 15 grand, it's 25 grand. So that one small claim, hey, that doesn't get filed. The larger losses, the loaded up truck, 15,000 pound truck with 5,000 pounds of stuff in it, piling down the interstate, slamming into somebody, that's going to what causes the rates to be so high is the what we consider the severity types of claims, the severity losses. So that's what really drives rates up over time. And what happens or what has happened in the last 10 years is those multiple options and those multiple different companies that were in the industry slowly kind of got out of the industry and left the industry as a result of the severity claims and the large losses. Whereas Progressive just always said, "Well, we'll just raise the rates. We'll stay in it forever," and they have, until really recently. In California, there's been some struggles with Progressive not writing new DOT numbers, and I've heard from a couple of different sources that they're really taking a hard look at and canceling several companies depending on where you're at and what your loss activity is. And so, but what's evolved, what's really happened over time is a lot of those companies have just left the marketplace. And what will happen is our industry and business is very cyclical. So it goes up and down. So when companies are tight and scared, they raise rates and they're really restrictive on what they're willing to underwrite. And that's called a hard market. And we're in one of the hardest markets I've ever seen in 20 years right now. But what will happen is that will turn into a soft market, and that will shift, and the insurance companies will start to make a lot of money in the stock market, their risk portfolio, and the increased rates will add to their their loss ratio money, that then they'll eventually decide that they want to grow again, and they'll expand their appetite. New companies will come out of the woodwork to fill the missing spaces of the companies that have left the marketplace, and the underwriters' risk tolerances will open up. And as that happens over time, more players will come back into the market, more insurance companies will come back, and then there will be more options eventually. But when I first started, man, there were 5 or 6 companies we could quote everybody with, and we would get multiple options. Now there's like 1 or 2. So it's a very different marketplace today than it was even just 5, 6 years ago.
We got a question from Red Cap Man. He says, "Does the dump charge you more because you're a business? I know if I go to the dump once a week, I get charged nothing, but if I start doing more trips during the week, they charge me. I live in Canada." So what most of the I've seen locally and all is everything's by weight, so usually they have a minimum charge at whatever dump or transfer station you're going. And then as the weight gets more, you get on the scale with a full load or whatever, then it's going to be whatever their full load weight rate is. It's usually like by 1 ton or something like that. Is that correct, Toby, that you know of, for the
Yeah.
most part?
Well, they definitely, the local dump is going to allow the resident to come in and unload, weekly, where they're just dumping their regular refuse or garbage, right? Whereas the businesses, that's when the dump fees get initiated, when you're a business and you're doing it routinely, and you're going and making multiple trips to the dump a day, 5, 6 days a week. Yeah, that's when you start to run into dump fees and dump charges, and absolutely. So yeah, there is definitely some truth to that in that sense. But that's where you have to do all of your due diligence as you're getting started, to make sure that you're researching what those local fees look like, and factor that into your business plan. So that's all. Yeah, that's definitely accurate.
Yeah, what I did is when I was watching Sonoma Strong, they told me to go around to all the local dumps, and each dump has a price list. So I went to all the local ones around me, and you kind of learn where certain ones they'll do mattresses for free. Some of them charge for them, $55 a mattress. They have a list of what they charge for everything, and you kind of just remember all that, and now you know where to bring them and what makes sense financially. Now, for the next question I have for you, brother, is what type of insurance should every junk removal business consider?
Yeah, so there's 2 you have to have. I mean, absolute must. So the first is commercial auto. That's the majority of what you're doing. That's the majority of your day to day. And that is a coverage that you definitely need to have. Um, the second one is your general liability. So general liability is going to cover you when you're not in the act of loading or unloading, and you cause third party bodily injury or property damage on somebody's uh, either commercial business or their personal residence, and then they want their loss reimbursed, or they want their claim taken care of. And a good example is, like, if you have a truck and a trailer and you disconnect from the trailer, and then the trailer goes down the driveway and smashes into the client's parked car, that's going to be a general liability claim, because the trailer is not connected to the truck at the time, so the commercial auto is not going to respond, and that's how that type of claim is covered. We had a guy who was clearing out a hoarder's backyard, and he rented a bobcat, and he was scooping up the junk and dumping it in the trailer and then hauling it off, and he rammed the balcony, and he caused $70,000 worth of damage to the to the garage. It was a balcony over the garage, and the steel beam was running all the way through the structure. Well, they had to come back out with the structural engineer and a GC and reset the building as a result of the damage. So, because that was mobile equipment and not the commercial auto that caused the third party property damage, that was covered under the general liability policy. So, general liability and commercial auto, absolute must. Other coverages will include workers' comp at the point where you start to employ workers, and that differs for every single state. It depends on what state you're in. You can just Google minimum work comp state statute for employees, and it will tell you in your specific state, am I allowed to have one employee or two employees or three employees or five employees before I'm required to provide workers' comp. And then you as the owner officer can always opt to exclude yourself from workers' comp, so you're not paying the premium on yourself. And then obviously clerical, anybody who's just in your office or staffed in your office and does sales or calls or bookkeeping or whatever, those employees are a much lower rate. So the junk removal rates for workers' comp usually fluctuate between 5 and 10% of whatever the annual salary is. So if you got a guy making 100,000 or two full-time guys making 100, the premium is going to be somewhere in the 5 to 10 grand a year range for that particular coverage. And then commercial umbrella might be required if you're working with a lot of commercial types of exposures. So if you're working with GCs or property managers or realtors doing cleanouts, that kind of work, and and that particular GC requires you to carry $1 million umbrella, you may have to have $1 million umbrella. The $1 million umbrella just adds $1 million to your underlying coverage. It's not like a catch-all where it just insures everything. It just increases your general liability by $1 million, your commercial auto by $1 million, and then your workers' comp by $1 million. So the commercial umbrella would be the other big coverage that we see a lot of times where guys are buying it as a result of the work that they're doing.
What are some common claims that you see in the junk industry?
Yeah, so like sawzawing out a kitchen island, the homeowner doesn't disclose that there's a pipe in there, and you nick that pipe and it floods the first floor. We've had that claim. We had a claim where a guy dropped the guts of a couch, dragged the couch across the floor, scratching the floor, banged the same couch into the door frame, dropped the same couch in the driveway, dragged it down the driveway. That was a $17,000 claim. And that's a commercial auto claim because they're in the act of loading and unloading the truck. So, and then really the biggest ones are the auto. We had a guy who's at a dead stop standstill and got slammed into by a car going 70 miles an hour. The guy going 70 miles an hour got decapitated, and then the three guys in the junk truck never worked again. So that was a $4.5 million claim. The guy who hit them didn't have enough insurance, and so it went under the uninsured and underinsured motorist limits on the commercial policy, and all of those policies paid out max. So those are the types of claims that are really horror story. But we also have horror stories where, we had a veteran client that was at a parade, and they've got their vehicle coned off, and they go to and it's a truck and a trailer set up, and they pick up the cones and they go to back up, and a lady walks behind the trailer right at the last minute, and she gets knocked over and she's fine. She refuses ambulance assistance at the time. Everybody says, okay, no big deal. 6 years later, $970,000 later, they end up settling that claim, and she needed a couple surgeries. She injured her leg, that and you wouldn't even think that would be a bad accident And those are the ones that, just end up being nightmares. But we've had guys disconnect from trailer. The trailer goes down the road. They chalk the tires. They miss chalk it. The trailer goes down the road, smashes into a car, destroys the car. We had a guy disconnect from a trailer, rolled down the driveway into the neighborhood traffic. Somebody T-boned it, the trailer, and it was a $1.3 million claim. So injury, medical, lawyer up 2, 3 years later, and then the claim settles and it settles for 1.3. So that's where having that, $1 million worth of commercial auto plus $1 million umbrella over the top of it um, makes it so that you can survive that claim, right? So, and then we had a client once that fell asleep at the wheel and they launched their junk truck off of a viaduct, landed upside down in 4 pieces on a train track. They had to stop the train. They had to come in with a tow truck. And the tow truck bill alone to pull the 4 pieces off the train tracks was $26,000. So they were luckily able to stop the train. The two guys in the truck, there was a 21-year-old driving, which I have no idea why you would have a 21-year-old driver when you've got a 31-year-old in the truck. So the 31-year-old who was in the truck walked away with just a broken sternum, and the 21-year-old not a scratch on him. And they were totally fine. It was unbelievable that they even survived that because the truck literally went like 60 feet in the air and landed upside down and exploded in 4 pieces. And
Oh,
and and in that scenario, the police officer on the scene said they couldn't believe that the guy survived it. So we see all kinds of stuff, but the big and bad, scary stuff is in the trucks. The minor stuff, 5, 10, 20 grand, 15 grand, all of that is usually just damage just being done when stuff is being hauled in or out.
Ronnie Millsap, thank you for subscribing. I appreciate that, brother. Appreciate the support for sure. How can junk removal companies effectively manage the risk to minimize claims?
Um, the best way is um, continual education. So, driver safety training, right? Spending the time with your guys in order to properly train and educate, best driving practices, subscribing to a telematics company, a company that will track your driving behavior and your driving patterns and give you immediate feedback. Having forward facing and driver facing cameras that will give you the feedback of what the driver's doing, if they're distracted driving, if they're texting, if they're eating while driving, if they're easily distracted. All those types of things can really help you to separate your company from the average company as a best in practice type of operation. So those are the big things that you can do that are in your control. And then just making sure that you're really doing the due diligence on hiring safe drivers, people without a rap sheet of accidents and violations, and hiring drivers that have experience driving those types of trucks. So those are all things that can really help. Are those always available? Is that the reality of the world we live in? No, it's not. There's a lot of guys out there that you got to get help and you got to deal with what you have available to you. And if you're hiring a guy for $15 an hour or 12 bucks to $18 an hour to help you hump couches, hey, that guy might not have that background. So you got to deal with what you can, but just all things being equal, making the best business decisions that you can and staying on top of driver safety best practices. I think that's the biggest impact that you can have overall And then just training and education, having a formal program that you can revert back to. All of these insurance companies have resources, whether they're online, you sign up for their online stuff, or you reach out and ask them for their safety types of programs, and implementing and having a formal written safety program. Those are the types of things that make a one risk better than another.
One take I'm taking from this is I would definitely now when I'm looking to hire a driver is I would definitely get their driving records and kind of make sure that they have a clean driver's records. Another thing might be, when you first get that person and you're kind of looking to see if that could be a possible driver, is kind of just drive along with them for a little while and just kind of go over safety and training as they're driving and just make sure they're doing smart moves and not texting and doing dopey stuff. So that's seems to be very, very important because one claim, like you were saying, could really, really, be significant on your rate overall. So definitely makes sense to go and provide that training.
Yeah, having them shadow you as the business owner for 2, 3 weeks before you're even letting them go on their own, and then shadowing them as they're driving. If they're going to be a driver by themselves and run a crew, or they're going to be absolutely 100%, you want to make sure that they're even capable of maintaining your standards as a business owner, and doing the job that effectively you would be satisfied with them doing. And driving the truck safely is a big component of that, because one bad hire or one bad accident can definitely set you back financially significantly.
How do you see the future of commercial insurance in the junk removal sector evolving?
It's tough right now. We're dealing with a lot of increases, a lot of challenges in the marketplace with that tight market, and just not many options. But I do see that shifting. Eventually, that's going to level off. Eventually, the marketplace is going to shift, and it will circle back, and we'll end up with 4 or 5 different competitive options. Eventually, that will stabilize. But the beauty and the curse, right, is the low point of entry makes a low point of exit. So anybody with a truck and a trailer can be in business running a junk removal company tomorrow. But the people that are going to survive it long term, the grinders, the people that make it through the red into the black after that 2, 3 kind of year period, that critical mass, the ones that can think bigger than themselves and know how to juggle all the different um, balls in the air in order to survive the entrepreneurial learning curve, those are the ones that are going to long term be around 4, 5, 6, 7 years from now. So being able to micromanage everything and manage everything and keep all that and build and grow your business. So you've got to do everything right from a sales and marketing perspective. You've got to do everything right from managing your employees, and then you've got to get eventually out of the truck yourself, and you've got to just focus on growing the business as a business. And that's what I think people really miss on. And if they never get out of the truck themselves and they never build and grow and scale, 3, 4 years after just humping couches around and grind it, and you put in your blood, sweat, and tears, but it just, you get to a point where you just don't see it going any further up, and you just shut it down and go find a job driving a truck or doing whatever, and you hang it up. Though that's those You got to figure out what is the recipe of success that causes you to be able to survive that top 20% in the industry and really grind out a long term. And it's not easy. It's not. It's not. This is a tough, hard business to be successful in long term, you've got to do every little bit. You've got to dial into the online presence. You got to drop door hangers. You got to word of mouth. You got to grow the business organically. You got to go when you're in a neighborhood, go 3 doors down, left and right, and drop a door hanger while you're there and say, hey, do you know anybody else that might be able to benefit from our services? Those are the types of little things that you've got to be doing all the time. The yard signs, the just on a consistent basis to really build and grow your business. You've got to get your name out there, and you've got to get that as a recognizable name in your local community. So how are you doing that? Join your local chamber of commerce, join your BNI group, go to events, marketing events, networking events in your local area, and drop off pamphlets and pens and the little tchotchkes to really get yourself out there and put everything you can into it. It's not just the work itself, but it's maintaining and building and growing that business. And you've got to surround yourself with the right business partners, the right accountants, the right people advertise, the right SEO people that are going to help. If you're going to go SEO route, you got to get a good one. And don't be afraid to fire those people if they're not the best fit for your business, and you don't feel like you've got somebody who's really watching out for your best interests. You've got to move on from those people. So finding the right fit for your individual chance of success is absolutely critical.
What do
So
you find most rewarding about working in this niche of a commercial insurance?
I love just helping people and saving people money. And man, when my head hits that pillow at night, and I've had a week where I've talked to 10, 15, 20 people, and I've been able to tweak just little things or help them in a way that's really what why I do what I do and why I love doing what I do. I'm really good at math. I'm really good at equations and figuring things out and asking all the questions that you need to in order to find out those details and get it right. And that's what I think I'm really good at. And so that's why I love just, and then when you meet your people, you just know, like, oh shit, these are my people. Okay, this is my world. This is going to be my world, is helping junk removal people. But I just found that I grew up in that environment, salt of the earth. I grew up in steel country, Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio. Armco Steel was half of the people from our hometown were employed by Armco Steel. I had 3 jobs in high school. I had 3 jobs through college. I mean, I was always a very hard worker. So for me, that was like, oh, well, I relate more to people that are this from this same cut of cloth. So for me, that's why I think I really enjoy this business and this and I'll help. It doesn't matter whether you have $1 million policy or a $500,000 policy or a $50,000 policy or a $10,000 policy. I genuinely am trying to help everybody I possibly can with my experience and knowledge and just understanding of this space. So I
Can
think
you sh-
that's what makes me different.
can you share a memorable experience of a success story from your work with junk removal business?
Yeah. I mean, we just wrote a guy this last year who was in dumpster rental, and he's hauling. He's got 2 internationals. He's down in Houston. He's grinding away, and he gets quoted with his local broker, and they misclassify the business. And he's got these are $200,000 trucks, right? 240,000. He's hauling 30 yarders and 40 yarders back and forth from construction sites all day. That's all he's doing. So he's got a ton of cans. He's got 2 trucks on the road. and for the 2 trucks, he's paying 107,000. So through Progressive, I look at his policy, we review it, completely incorrectly classified. We agent a record over the policy, take over the policy. I call, we reclassify the business under the correct classification for a dumpster rental, and his updated premium's 51,000. So
Wow.
that's a brand new startup guy that just started a year ago. He hadn't even renewed that policy. He hadn't even been through his first renewal, and instead of paying 107,000, he's now going to pay 51,000, and that $56,000 difference will absolutely make the difference between that guy's chance of being successful this year, or in general period, or not. Because when you're getting started, every dollar counts, and being able to keep these premiums down as much as possible. So that's a great one. I mean, that's just the I think the typical kind of stuff that we see and come across, and again, those misclassifications, I mean, they make such a big impact in your overall costs. So knowing how to do it right and doing it the right way, um, especially when the coverage comes to into play, is absolutely critical.
Where can people get in touch with you if they have any questions about commercial insurance or if they want to hire you as their broker?
Yeah, absolutely. So Toby at wisdominsurance.com is my email. Cell phone 224-213-4648. Reach out, text me, call me. I'll send you a copy of our questionnaire. You fill out the questionnaire. If you're with Progressive already and want us to review the coverages, send us over copies of your policies, and then we'll just dig through it. We'll work through it, and circle back with you, give you our breakdown of it. If we end up being a better fit for you, love to work with you. If not, no harm, no foul. Doesn't hurt to take a look, and find out if there are more options that you're not getting to because your local broker just doesn't know where to go. So if we can help you, love to work with you and help you.
Now, are you going to be there October 25th at the Junk Expo on the West
I
Coast?
definitely am. I'm going to be there with. We're going to go out and set up a little booth. Wife's going to go out with me, and we're going to make a weekend of it with the out there in wine country. So really looking forward to it, and I'll definitely be at the Junk Expo in Sonoma in October.
Well, I'm looking forward to meeting you over there, brother. I'll show you around the area. I'm pretty local. And shout out to Sonoma Strong. Guys, if you haven't already, make sure you get in touch with Matt Vick and get your tickets. They're almost all sold out. I mean, they're packing this whole place. People are coming from all over the country. We know Toby Stubbs is going to be there. You could talk with him and review your commercial insurance policy. We got so many other great people going to be there. I think the guys from 1-800-JUNK, some of the big SEO guys. We got Andrew Thompson, who's got $1 million junk removal business. I think he just sold. And I think he's also starting Autopilot, which is a new app that's going to help our industry majorly. He'll be explaining all that in person. So definitely, guys, would be a great resource. You know, you're going to learn so much, just great networking event. So I strongly encourage you to get over there. Get in touch with Matt Vick. It's going down October 25th in Rohnert Park, California. So definitely something you're going to want to check out if you're in the junk industry, or if you're looking to possibly get into it. You know, it could be a great learning experience and tell you if this fits for you. Well, I want to thank you, Toby, for coming on today. So much valuable information I learned here. I'm looking forward to going back and making some clips out there of some of the key points. I'm going to share this with the YouTube community, and I hope it just helps out a lot of newbies out, because it definitely is helping me out. In the middle of getting my commercial insurance, and just like you were saying before, I was dealing with a local broker. came over to Toby Stubbs and, learned that I was going about it the whole wrong way, was getting classified not the right titles and all that. And I'm just hoping that's going to make a big difference on my, annual price for my insurance. So definitely a great thing you're providing for the junk removal business. Thank you again, brother. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you October 25th.
Yeah, definitely. Can't wait to get out there and mix it up and see everybody in person. And to add to that, too, two of the other speakers that are going to speak that day, John Aguirre from Happy Junk Removal, long-term client, great client. He's out in Arizona. We first started working with him 3 years ago. We saved him. I think 25, 30% on his insurance first year doing business with us. Another client that's also on the panel is Denise Sparks from Sparks Junk Removal. And she is one of my favorite people in the world. She is an absolute animal and just an amazing person. And they recently branched out and got into actual local trash removal services, and she is a fascinating story, but great person too, that we've insured for several years and has been working with us for a while. And just, it's hilarious that several of the speakers on the panel are just all customers. So that when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, I definitely need to be involved in this. Let's go. I'm going out. And then plus two, any chance you get an opportunity to see several, dozen customers all at once, wouldn't miss it for the world. So excited, looking forward to it. Can't wait to meet you and the Sonoma crew when I'm out there. Really, really excited for this one.
Yeah, Matt actually told me, he said, bring up my dump truck and we could park it right out front, and have that all with my advertising on it. So I'm looking forward to that. And again, Denise Sparks, that is the queen of junk. Is that what they call her?
Yeah. Yeah, she's great. Yeah, I think she's in Missouri. Um she's kind of on the border of Illinois and Missouri, and she started doing just regular junk removal, and then eventually expanded into actual like garbage trucks where they're doing the kind of the street service. And she's grown her business, I mean, tremendously over the most recent year or two, just as a result of expanding into that local space. And she's got some real dogfight stories that are just incredible, with the local companies there trying to keep her out of the dump, all kinds of crazy stuff. So she is a fighter and a warrior and just an awesome person in general. So you'll get to meet her and see her and hear her story, and it's amazing. So I can't even do it justice. But her and John both. I mean, John's an amazing guy. I went out and visited John this last year. We filmed some video content out with him and his crew and his trucks. And one of the things that we are going to do with our own website is create a bunch of clips where we're just teaching people the ABCs of insurance. So eventually you'll be able to go to our website, which is junkremovalinsurance.com, and watch just different clips of learn about workers' comp and audits and all kinds of stuff like that. And then, and we're going to try to put together some YouTube kind of content for our own use through our junk removal website. So we went out and filmed with John and did that in Arizona. And so I know he'll be there speaking as well, and Andrew Thompson as well. I've known him for a long time. Great stuff they're doing. Super excited for them to launch their product and start to see that. And I may partner with him. We're talking about doing some stuff that's fun and exciting, just to bring more excitement to the industry, where we go in, help some people do like a junk rescue type of deal. So we'll see what we come up with there. But all good people. That whole panel, that whole crew is totally awesome. It's going to be a great event.
Yeah, speaking of Andrew Thompson, I'm in talks with him. I think in the next couple days he's going to come on the channel and kind of introduce him to my subscribers and all. So looking forward to that as well. And guys, just so you know, I'm getting out there on YouTube. I want to get all the tops in the industry. Obviously, I got Toby on here. I had Sonoma Strong. We're talking with Andrew Thompson. There's a couple other guys that I'm in talks with. But yeah, I just want to do a lot of interviews with everybody in the industry. And I'm also going to be doing behind the scenes as I start up my business and kind of go to day-to-day operations and kind of just show everybody from the beginning, you know, as I build the business. So if you're interested in that and following my journey, definitely subscribe. There's going to be tons of content coming out. Well, thank you again, Toby, for coming on. Looking forward to football tonight. My Philadelphia Eagles are playing, so I'm going to be watching that. Great game last night. That was unbelievable with you know, between the Ravens and Kansas City, and that last play was just unreal. You know, called a touchdown, and then you know they declined it after that because his toe was outside. But exciting times. Really happy that football's back on as well.
Yeah, that was a great start to the season, right? And the funny part is, I think they did this intentionally because you've got Kansas City and Baltimore, and then tonight Eagles and Green Bay, and you either love or hate, right? One of those four teams, without a doubt. So for me last night, I was really hoping it would end in a tie, just because I couldn't think of a worse ending for both of those teams. But the the you know, I hate the Chiefs because they wrecked my playoff dreams several times in the last few years since we drafted Burrow. But the divisional loss is better, I think, for me at the end of the day. So, but that was a lose lose. But what a great game! I mean that you know 1 inch toe, and then you hear Mahomes saying his advice is to wear white shoes next time. You know, it's just hilarious. Tonight, I'm sure will be a banger of a game too. So good luck. Go. You know, go Pack, go, and then fly Eagles fly. It'll be a tough one. This will be a grind. I mean, that should be a pretty good game again tonight. And
Well, I'm
then
gonna be in
tomorrow,
your
I
neck of the
believe.
woods a lot. You know, like I was telling you offline, is you know my boy is Tyson Bagent. He's the backup quarter of Caleb Williams in Chicago Bears. So you know, one of my best friends is Travis Bagent, his father, and you know we go to all the different games. We go all over the country. But now that I know that you're over in Chicago, we'll definitely have to meet up, have a couple of drinks, go out to a game, and have a good time.
Oh, absolutely. I'm 100% in. Let me know anytime you're in Chicago because I'd love to go to a Bears game and go and be a part of that. That I went to the Bengals Bears preseason game just for the sake of, going and I love and I'm a believer. I mean, I think the Bears have really transformed their organization. Is this going to be the year? I don't know, but definitely in the next year or two, they'll be in the conversation. When you have a quarterback who even has the ability to, scratch the 4,000 yard passing season like they do now, man, that is a game changer. So hopefully he does stay healthy. If he doesn't, and your boy gets his chance, I'm a buyer on the Chicago Bears right now, and I do think they're going to be awesome moving forward with literally no vested interest other than living here. And you can see I'm still a diehard Cincinnati fan, even though I've lived here for the majority of my life. So, but yeah, anytime you're in the Chicago area, you let me know, and we'll catch up.
Sounds good, Toby. Thank you again, brother. That was a great interview, and have a great night.
Thanks. Take care.